Today on an all-new Dr. Phil.
She claims her mom is unstable.
You bitch, you have ruined my life!
And ruined her sister's wedding.
I think for one day, you would be able to look at your daughter and say, I am not going to ruin her wedding.
Under what theory should it have been about you in any way?
I needed that time to gather myself.
What does that have to do with you making an ass out of yourself at the wedding?
Nothing.
Then why are we talking about it? Today's going to be a changing day in your life. You've never had anybody working harder to bring you to the threshold of change than right now. The $70 billion wedding industry banks on the expectation that families can come together in harmony for at least just one picture-perfect day. Well, that certainly wasn't the case for today's guest. Danielle wrote into the show because she says her family has yet to recover from her sister Wendy's wedding day because it was a disaster. Almost 8 years ago, when she claims their mother, Janet, acted like a, quote, complete lunatic. Now, Danielle and Wendy say this was just one of the many moments of trauma and chaos their mom has caused in their lives. Take a look.
During my childhood, my mother was absent, checked out, and neglectful.
She told me at a pretty young age that she wanted to be my friend and not necessarily my mother.
My mom has been married 3 times and has been in at least 6 different relationships. There was no structure or stability in my life.
In my teen years, she was absolutely very unreliable.
She did not look at my schoolwork. She didn't help me with my homework. It was very violent in my home growing up. There were a lot of arguments, a lot of physical fighting, a lot of emotional and verbal abuse as well.
I would get such in a rage as a child. I absolutely lashed out at my mother. However, I didn't really know any other way.
Around the age of 12, I started becoming very physical with my mom, and there would be huge blowout fights. I would hit her, I would kick her. When I have confronted my mom about the trauma in my childhood, Janet would be very defensive and angry.
You have ruined my life because you're so selfish! I am not gonna be civil to someone who's beat me! No! Just go away. No. You disgust me!
Every time I try to talk to my mom, things get heated.
You're gonna hit me? No! You're gonna hit me? No! Well, then go away! No!
I do believe my mother is an emotionally unstable person.
Coming on this show is a last-ditch effort for my family, my siblings and I to have a relationship with our mother.
I don't want to ever see you again! You never liked me in the first... I don't like you now! You never liked me! Go away! Why don't you just leave me alone?
I'm not holding my breath that she and I will have a relationship anytime soon.
The infamous wedding day drama certainly didn't help. Here's what happened.
I got married 7 years ago, 2 days right before the wedding. Everyone was arriving to set up. From the minute my mom got there, she was arguing with me. I mean, just right out of the gates.
Wendy was not including me in the wedding, and that bothered me a lot.
She wanted to have sort of control of the situation. And at that point, I was like, you know what? This is my wedding, and I'm gonna go have fun with my friends. And she was mad about that. Then she threw a tantrum that night.
I got a call from my little sister saying that mom was freaking out.
She carried on by slamming doors and having arguments in hallways.
My mom was pacing the halls, screaming, trying to break down the door.
She actually went around and just pulled down all the picture frames.
And that was an all-night thing, just the screaming and yelling. The day of the wedding, my sister tried to put it behind her and go get their hair done together. As soon as they get out of the salon, my mom takes her hair out and washes off the makeup instantly. And that was the makeup for the wedding. And it was kind of a to my sister.
My biological father was actually at the wedding, and he hadn't seen my mother in a really long time.
And there's her father who's been there for a couple of days, and it's daddy this and daddy that, and I hadn't seen him for maybe 15 years. Seeing somebody who had absolutely tore our lives apart and destroyed my dreams, was more than I could take. And I had a total meltdown.
After we said our wedding vows, my mother turned around to my father and was in his face, yelling at him.
We had to barricade my mom in and seclude her in a room at one point because we just had to get through the wedding.
And then they accused me that I was on drugs, and they said I was imbalanced and wouldn't leave me alone.
My mom ruined the wedding for my sister.
I saw this side of my mother that my sisters had been talking about.
Since that wedding, our family has split apart even more.
Okay, well, joining me now is Danielle in studio and her sister Wendy via Ionicos. Now, you said this is a last-ditch effort to have a family, to heal wounds, to put things together. Wendy, have you given up on that? Danielle seems to still hold a little bit of hope. How about you?
I think both of us have had completely different experiences growing up, but very similar outcomes. And I had to choose a lot earlier on that I wanted to remove myself from the situation.
You said that you're willing to participate today for Danielle's sake.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Danielle, what is it that you hope to accomplish here? You clearly believe that you've been traumatized by your mother, neglected by your mother, just victimized by her when you were growing up and now.
Yes. So the reason that I'm here is simply because I need to know whether or not it is healthy for me to have a relationship with my mother, with Janet.
Well, you've said that she put men ahead of you, that she really was not interested in your life, not interested in even your schoolwork, left you alone at home with the dog, oftentimes, just really taking care of yourself. How do you explain that to yourself? What would cause a mother to just not be invested in their daughter?
I cannot answer that honestly, Dr. Phil, because I have a daughter myself, and I cannot imagine not protecting her at any cost. I have no idea why she chose to keep me as her child, but also didn't want to raise a child.
You said she would witness you being abused and do nothing about it.
100%, yes.
So when you were 7 years old, you were sleeping on a second grade teacher's floor.
It was hard for me because I didn't know where my mom was, and she hadn't explained to me that she was probably on a business trip. To this day, I still don't know.
Well, you missed 2 or 3 months of the 5th grade because you were living in a hotel, didn't have a stable home situation.
Right. She did not prioritize stability in my life, and that has very severely affected me into my adulthood.
Well, Wendy, you say when you turned 13, your adolescence was kind of swept away because you had to step in and do a lot of the things a mother would normally do. True?
Absolutely. It was a survival mode at that point. Danielle was born from another relationship, and part of her birth actually at first saved our family because we had this kind little baby that was in our home, and we were able to take care of her. And for a little while it was calm, and we were able to be a little family, and then it just started to fall apart. I started to find my exit strategy out of the home really quickly.
All of these things I want to talk about. Coming up, Janet's here. She says her children need to stop dwelling on the past and just move on. So we're going to meet the woman that these daughters refuse to call mom next.
My children blame me for what happened in the past, and that pisses me off. They're adults now. Let's move on. I'm tired of being attacked.
And later,
This
happened. It was normal in my life, and you allowed it to happen.
How was I to stop it?
It was years and years and years of abuse.
On multiple occasions, my mom told me that I was an accident, and at one point she even said that she wished she had aborted me. I've always known that I was an accident, but hearing that from her mouth was crushing, absolutely crushing.
Well, Danielle and Wendy say their mom is mentally stunted and always plays the victim, no matter what. She always plays the victim. But Janet says she's tired of taking the heat, and her children just need to just get over it and move on.
As a mother, I felt I did the best I could at the time. I had 6 men in my life while the children were growing up. I've never liked to be alone. The men that I brought into my children's lives, I do not consider that they were ever abusive to my kids. Even though they did get physical with them sometimes, it was more of a matter of restraining them or trying to get them to go to their room. As a mother, I never felt like I was purposely neglectful. I had to move the children a lot because of my job. I feel that my children had stability in their lives. They just didn't feel it. In a lot of cases, I tried to be a friend more than a parent. My children blame me for what happened in the past, and that pisses me off. They're adults now. Let's move on. Let's look at tomorrow and get on with it.
Well, Danielle was born 14 years after her other siblings, and Janet says she had a particularly hard time raising her because she was a single working mom.
Danielle was a very volatile child. We did not know who was going to walk in the door, what kind of mood she was going to be in. She would hit, kick, scream, call me names, and she wouldn't let up. Sometimes I would match her anger back.
You bitch, you have ruined my life!
I would shove her, like, to get out of my way. I'd push her, grab her to protect me. I never told Danielle that I wish I had aborted her. From the moment we knew that we were going to have Danielle, she was never once thought of as being a problem. I do not know why she would say those horrible, hurtful words. I'm tired of being attacked. I think my kids are spending too much time in the past, and they need to move forward.
You've just said that they just need to let the past be the past and just move on.
I said that because it gets thrown in my face all the time. I don't really understand a lot of their anger or where it came from.
Let's talk about what it is you're saying you want them to get over.
Growing up, my mom's current husband, Dave, was extremely abusive to me. The abuse was really extremely physical and terrifying. He would hit me, he would kick, he would hurt my mom, he would hurt our animals. Dave would always put my mom in a position where my mom would have to choose between Dave or myself. And she would always choose Dave right in front of me. When my mom witnessed him abusing me or hitting her or starting fights between us, she would just stand there and watch. And it would usually get to a point where she would say, "Dave, stop. She is going to call the police on you." She was trying to protect Dave from getting in trouble than from hurting her own daughter. I felt so unprotected.
This is a statement from Adriana, Danielle's childhood friend. I was struck frozen as I watched this grown man just punch a 13-year-old girl in the face over and over again. It was during this time that Janet came into the room and started yelling at Dave to stop because her friend is here and she's going to call the police. Janet was aware that the abuse was happening. Danielle would stay with us for weeks at a time, sometimes especially during the summer.
That is one quote from one of your friends. And it began with you punching me. You were attacking me. And yeah, I tried to, I got in between you every time.
Can we be honest? Can we take this moment and pretend that none of this other stuff is here?
Yeah.
That we are not on a TV show?
I'm not.
And be honest about the fact that this happened. It was normal in my life, and you allowed it to happen. You allowed it to happen, and you cannot continue to deny that, or you cannot be in my life. This isn't pretend.
I'm not pretending, and I'm not ignoring that it didn't happen. There was so much of it that I wish I could have avoided. And I wish I could go back and I could change a lot of it. But I did protect you as much as I could. I tried, okay? I did try.
You're the adult in this situation. And there's a duty that comes there legally, morally, ethically. And I don't know if you're hearing what she's saying.
How was I to stop it? She's physically bigger than I am. She was pounding on me in front of my husband.
Not at 12 years old. I wasn't physically larger than you. I was big, and I was violent, and I will not deny that.
Danielle expressed her feelings to you about Dave in this tape. Listen.
Because I am now getting a divorce and I'm not having you around me. You said that you were getting a divorce about 12 times. Maybe probably a billion times more. I love him. I love him. You love, wow, tell me everything you love about him. You love that he beats you. You love that he talks down to you. You love that he does nothing for you except socially awkward person and sits in his office and sleeps in his chair. That's my life. That's what you like. You can't stop living my life and I'm not living. I have. I've been living just fine downstairs. And then you try to take that away from me.
Can I just say, I was 17 years old when that recording was made. 17. I wasn't even an adult yet. Don't deny that this happened. It happened not just for a year. It wasn't just a single incident. It was years and years and years of abuse. And I was not quiet about it. I told everybody I possibly could so that I could get out.
You didn't tell me.
I think I did.
We did get a statement from Dave. It reads, I have been blamed by both Danielle and Janet for causing this rift in the family. I believe in more discipline than Janet does and wouldn't accept Danielle's behavior in her teens. Danielle and I get along now, but it's a wary piece. Wendy and Danielle have both done whatever they could to break Janet and I up, but we have survived. Now, that's his statement. We're going to hear from Janet's son, Matt, as well, who says his entire life he's been caught in the middle of all the mother-daughter drama. We'll be right back. That's not an apology. I
tried many times to just apologize.
This was her wedding day.
Janet says she wants her daughters, Danielle and Wendy, to stop bringing up the past and move on. Her son, Matt, says his mother has never apologized for anything despite all the trauma she caused him and his sisters.
I found out my parents were getting divorced on my 10th birthday on a family vacation. The divorce crushed my mom. I feel as though my mom lost touch with reality. My mom was not the most involved parent. She didn't really come to very many sporting events as far as I played football and baseball. She didn't really check on grades too much. As a child, I went to about 5 or 6 different elementaries. Went to one junior high, moved to a whole different state to high school. Looking back, I do feel as though I lacked stability in my life. My mom definitely was more of a friend than a mother. I felt as though my mom prioritized her husbands over her children. I would say I have witnessed my mom being abused by some of these men. I felt powerless because I was a child. It was pretty terrible for me to witness that. If I confront my mom about the past, she is very uncomfortable speaking about it. She doesn't feel as though our childhood was bad at all. There's a lot of tension between my mom and my sisters. It was definitely a very volatile household. We definitely had quite a few pretty physical fights. I feel as though I'm definitely stuck in the middle and having to play peacemaker between my mother and my sisters. I am very sick of being in the middle of their issues.
Well, Matt is joining us now on Skype. Wendy is with us virtually as well. Matt, you've been listening to what's going on here. Is your mother in denial about this?
I think finally it's gotten to the point where she is accepting some of it. I have confronted her about specific issues, and Janet just definitely kind of acts like confused, or like it's a foggy memory. Like, so she definitely acts like she doesn't recall all the issues.
Wendy, you've been listening to the exchange between these two. What do you have to say?
Like Matt, I feel helpless. I feel like I've extended myself and I've put myself even now out here to help support her, and it feels very trivialized. It feels very much brushed off. And I think there's a reason that we're here, and I hope that we can move forward and she can take some accountability.
I admitted, and I have tried numerous times to apologize to her and her husband for the wedding. There was no excuse on my part for that meltdown. But there were circumstances that led up to it, and of how...
Okay, hang on. Let me stop you right there, because this is part of the issue. And I'm trying to help you here, okay?
Yeah, please.
I know I'm interrupting you, but I'm trying to help you here. Because you just said a really big buzzword for me. You just said, there's no excuse for it. I had a meltdown, but means forget what I just said. I'm going to now tell you what I really think. I had a meltdown. There's no excuse for it, but forget that. Now I'm going to tell you there were extenuating circumstances. There was somebody there I hadn't seen for 15 years, only played a minimal role in the kids' lives. All of a sudden, he's center stage. She's ignoring me, paying attention to him. She's with her friends. I'm being marginalized. And so I was the victim, and it got to me. And what can I tell you? That's what you really mean. That's not an apology. That's not an apology. That's just saying, you know, I'll explain this away. I made an ass out of myself, but I'm going to explain it away.
True.
Yeah, we'll look at the text right here. This is between you and Wendy. Your wedding was my fault, but this is just something you do. But there was a lot more than just the day going on. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's what you do. You've done it 10 times since you got here. I just called you on it. Here you are doing it back in 18. And Wendy says, you're the one that walked away. You take no accountability. You ruined it. You are toxic.
I tried many times to just apologize, to just come to you and apologize.
Yeah, we heard you.
But it takes more than that. Janet, this was her wedding day. One day. If you had control, over your own self, I think for one day, you would be able to look at your daughter in the eyes and say, this is her day, and I'm letting it go because this is my daughter, and I am not going to ruin her wedding.
I was told, you're not sane. There's an ambulance on call for you.
You had just attacked your daughter.
I needed to be left alone.
Under what theory should it have been about you in any way? Robin, what would it take for you on one of your son's weddings to go in, throw a tantrum, go in another room, wash off all the makeup, all the getting ready for the wedding, and make it all about you?
I didn't do any of that.
I'm sorry?
That would actually never happen. Of course, that would never happen because I know I would be making a huge statement to my child about who I am, and I know they would never forget it. I know our relationship would be changed forever. I would be putting them in shock, of course, but I would never, ever, ever do that. I know that my role as their mother is to make their life as wonderful and as beautiful, and especially on that day, as I could. And I would never do that. It's about them always.
That wasn't the case that day for you. That day you made it about you.
You know, that's easier said than done because, and I'm going to say because or but or however you want to put it.
That's however you put it.
But there was a lot going on, and I have no excuse for my behavior. And yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Robin. That should have been the most beautiful day in my daughter's life. I actually tried to find a room away from everybody, and they wouldn't let me. And I was told, you're not sane. There's an ambulance on call for you, and you're not sane, and we don't trust you to be yourself. I said, leave me alone. I needed that time to gather myself.
Under what theory should you have needed any time? Under what theory should it have been about you in any way, under any circumstances? Wendy, I'm sorry that this happened to you. I really am. I hate that happened.
It was 10 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle that was where we actually had put her in a room with somebody that's a nurse.
And I needed to be left alone.
But you had just attacked your daughter. Look at me, please. The only reason that we are here is because we're trying. She's here. Can you believe it? She's here. Matt is here. I'm here.
But did you?
And we want you to get better. We want you to face the truth so we can walk forward. And if we can't do that, and if we continue to live in this cycle of disillusion, then we're never going to be able to have a healthy relationship.
You're not giving me some credit. Does Wendy even know that before your wedding, her wedding, to come up, you refused to be at her wedding? You were called her all of these names and you were not going to come up, and you hated me and you hated everybody, and I had my mom with me.
Okay, hang on a second. What does that have to do with you making an ass out of yourself at the wedding? Okay, then why are we talking about it?
Because I'm trying to defend.
And
she comes up like she pretends.
I didn't come up because I knew that you and Dave were going to be there.
Coming up, Janet says she could apologize 1,000 times, but it wouldn't change anything. But has she ever truly taken accountability? You cannot change. You cannot change what you do not acknowledge. Think about it. We'll be right back. No, wait a minute.
But I haven't.
Wait a minute.
And they're good.
Wait a minute. No. No, you don't get to put words in my mouth. Clearly, the perception is these girls just simply did not feel valued. They did not feel tended to. They did not feel that they were a priority with you. Now, I'm not saying that that's what your intention was, but I'm telling you that's their reality.
Mm-hmm. And I, you know, if you look back and those are my regrets. My regret being that I left Danielle as much as I did, but my career and my position at that time was to travel a lot, and I didn't have a choice in that to pay my bills.
I think being a single mom is probably the hardest job in the world. So understand, I respect the challenge of being a single mother. I've never been one, never been a single parent, so I'm not going to tell you that I know how you felt during that time, but I've worked with enough to know that it's a very hard situation. So don't think I'm turning a deaf ear.
No.
I've also heard your daughters be very candid with me about the fact that they were holy terrors. So it was a tough situation, and they lived through divorce. And you have been married how many times?
3.
And Danielle says there have been at least a half a dozen or so other significant relationships, not marital relationships, but other significant relationships along the way. My point is these children don't want to spend the rest of their lives beating up their mother. They just need to hear their mother own the fact that along the way, they got pushed to the side more than they should have been. They just need you to acknowledge it's abusive again to them to deny the reality of what happened.
But you know, I'm not denying the reality. I don't feel like I'm denying the reality of these events. What I'm saying is I want some respect for what might have led up to some of these events and understandings and stuff like that. You talk about, like, I've had dozens of men in my life.
No, wait a minute.
But I haven't.
Wait a minute.
And they're
no,
good.
No, wait a minute. No. No, you don't get to put words in my mouth. I didn't say that they said you had dozens of men in your life. So you don't get to take what I said, exaggerate it as a paper tiger and set it up so it fits your narrative. That's another but. You're trying to defend yourself instead of own your situation. I didn't just fall off a turnip truck. Seriously?
No. I didn't. What I want is just some understanding. I want them to hear me. I do.
As much as they want you to hear them.
Yeah, exactly.
Janet says she misses her grandchildren. But Wendy and Danielle say, well, I'm sorry, you just can't be trusted around them because you're just too unpredictable and just really not stable enough to be trusted. We'll talk about that next.
Wendy said that I'm not to be alone with her granddaughter and that she does not trust me. So I've only met her at a birthday party and stuff like that. Oh, that makes me so sad. I just want to hold her. And because of all the turmoil, we're broken and we're distant from each other.
Well, Wendy, Danielle, and Matt all agree that Janet just simply doesn't own what's happened in their lives so far. It's what you call undoing. She'll say, yes, I do, but no, I don't. I kind of do, but then I don't. That did happen, but there was a reason. It's do, undo. Yes, but no. Yes, but no. Which is very frustrating for children when they hear it from their parents. What do you want from your mother? Simple, straight.
I want you to stop denying the past. I want you to stop denying the fact that Dave was not a good man in our lives. He might have had a good heart at some point, but something happened and he really did become a monster. Please, I need you to stop thinking of us as trying to break up you and Dave. What we were trying to do is defend ourselves from getting more hurt because we've already been trampled on. I've been punched in the face. I've been kicked.
Give her something she can do to advance the ball here.
Go to therapy or do something with us and be willing to hear the truth. We want to hear your truth too. I am eternally grateful that you are here. I have never seen you try harder for our family ever. This means so much to all of us that you're willing to sit here. It really does. Look at me, please. Look at me. I want you in my life. I just need to move forward with you, and the only way we can do that is by stop denying. We both have to own what we've done, and we both have to be empathetic and willing to listen to each other's perspectives because they're going to be different. They're going to be different.
When we have only spoken on the phone or even in person, I had gotten so far past this that I was so angry that I wouldn't be able to have a true conversation with you. And I only asked for a third-party mediator, and after 7 years, you still have not been able to do that.
This is how Danielle asked me. We both need to do this. We both need to be heard. That's what Danielle said.
You have never, ever said that to me. It was an ultimatum. With you, it was an ultimatum.
Absolutely.
It wasn't.
After
it
you
wasn't.
ruined
We
my
need
wedding,
to work
I
on
had
it.
to put boundaries up.
This is
Absolutely. You had crossed over a major boundary, and boundary had been broken down so many times.
What about me?
That I had
What
to
about
give
my
you the
boundaries?
ultimatum to be able to come back into my life at this point.
What about my boundaries? What about me?
You
Okay,
crossed those boundaries. You were
We're here because
uncontrollable.
of you.
But listen, again, I understand that you're doing this as an ultimatum, and I accepted that. I knew that when I came on here, that this was it, that we needed to do this, and we're going to move it forward, and I am very committed in that.
Well, we have to take a break, but when we come back, I'm going to tell this whole family what I think needs to happen, and I think there's going to be a few people here very surprised at what I say. Janet, what I say to you is you're getting in your own way a lot because you feel like you've been hurt and that nobody really pays attention to your pain along the way. They want to talk about you as a perpetrator and ignore the fact that you've been victimized along the way. I see and hear both. You are clearly a perpetrator. I also know that you've been hurt along the way a lot, not just by them, but in your life. You made some bad choices. And I know why you made some choices. Some bad choices were made in your life. It caused you to make some bad choices. And Danielle, you talk about your mother being the victim, that no matter what you talk about, she turns it around to where she's the victim. Well, you know what? You're an adult.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's time for you to stop being a victim. And you have to set some standards and some boundaries in your life. Ultimatums are not a good way to negotiate because it doesn't leave anywhere to go.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, you need to decide that there's a price of admission in your life, and it requires authenticity, it requires ownership, and you need to hold yourself to the same standard as does Wendy, as does Matt, as does Janet, because anything else is just going to be putting a patch on things.
I 100%
But look,
agree.
you can spend your whole life waiting to get something from somebody that doesn't have it to give. And if she's too broken to give you what you need, then you need to accept that. You might be asking her to give you something she's incapable of giving you. I don't think so. But if she doesn't have it to give, she doesn't have it to give. That time will tell. And I do think that it would be very beneficial for you guys to have some counsel as a family. And I'll arrange that for you. I'll arrange that for you on Doctor on Demand. We're in a pandemic where you can't do all that, but teletherapy is a very useful medium and mode. And Doctor on Demand, which is one of our family entities, we can provide doctoral level family therapists that can meet with you guys collectively and broker this. And it won't take long. I'll arrange 10 sessions for you, and let me tell you, by the end of that, you're going to know whether you have something to work with or whether you don't.
Thank you.
All right. I want to thank all of my guests today. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Don't forget Robin's podcast, I've Got a Secret. She talks to women about the secrets to their success, the things that have caused them to put their lives on the track to being happy, healthy, fulfilled, excited, exhilarated about being in this world. And it is absolutely intriguing. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.